There's a Democrat moving forward with this resolution to impeach President Trump as well.
Yeah, and that resolution doesn't look like it has the buy-in even from his fellow Democrats. So this member of Congress has put this resolution on the floor. He's a House Democrat, Sheree Tenlander. He has put it on the floor. It will be tabled most likely in a vote tonight because Democratic leadership have signaled that they will join Republicans, and Democratic members of the House will as well, to table this motion to impeach President Trump. It doesn't have the support of House Democratic leadership, but it is a resolution that this individual member says is a long time coming. And frankly, he promises to continue to bring it up over and over and over again based on what he says are the objections he has with this administration and President.
Two sentences. First, a House Democrat just forced a privileged resolution to impeach Donald Trump, bringing a surprise vote to the floor with no advance warning, no committee process, no scheduled debate, and Democratic leadership signaled they would join Republicans to table it. Second, this is not the first time this has happened. And the fact that it keeps happening is the institutional story most coverage misses. Al Green has forced privileged resolution impeachment votes before, in 2017 twice, in 2019. The pattern is documented. Each time the resolution was tabled, each time it didn't produce a conviction or removal, each time it was described as a dramatic moment that ultimately changed nothing procedurally, and each time something else happened that most coverage also missed. The number of Democratic members willing to vote yes on the floor, even on a resolution their own leadership was tabling, either held steady or grew. The privileged resolution vote is not primarily a mechanism for removal. It is a mechanism for documenting where the House Democratic caucus actually stands on impeachment at any given moment. That documented standing is the institutional record the privileged resolution produces, not removal, not conviction. A floor vote that creates a permanent public record of who voted which way, on what grounds, at what moment in the accountability story. That is what the opening clip of this document confirms. A member introduced a privileged resolution, Democratic leadership signaled it would be tabled, and a vote happened. The resolution was tabled with Democratic leadership joining Republicans. That pattern is the story. Not the dramatic version, the analytically precise one.
Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, when he has the ability to perfect what he says. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is no joke, and the Prime Minister of Israel should be ashamed, knowing the history of his people, to stand there and allow such things to be said. Ethnic cleansing has been a crime against humanity. And I stand here today in the well to denounce what was said, to denounce what the president said, to denounce the complicity of the Prime Minister of Israel.
Let me be direct about what this document is and what it is not, because honesty about the document is the only way to use it analytically. This document contains highly inflated claims that cannot be reproduced in an honest commentary. Specific vote counts characterized as established facts. Republicans voting present in specific numbers, betting markets at specific odds, Pambondi evidence tampering scandal, an election takeover plan that leaked, a third impeachment described as already having happened and proceeding to Senate trial. Several of those specific claims are not independently verified. The document presents them with the framing of certainty. This is happening. Trump is now impeached for a third time. The Senate has to decide. That cannot be reproduced honestly. What is verified in this document? The opening clip showing a House Democrat's privileged resolution being tabled with Democratic leadership support. Al Green's documented pattern of forcing privileged resolution votes. The privileged resolution mechanism itself. The constitutional math, 67 senators, 16 Republicans from 51 Democratic baseline. The War Powers Resolution grounds as a documented impeachment predicate. The No Kings protest documented in this series. This commentary uses the verified elements. The specific unverified claims are not reproduced. The honest institutional story is analytically significant without them. Here is what the privileged resolution mechanism actually is, because understanding the mechanism is what makes the Al Green pattern analytically significant. A privileged resolution is a specific type of House motion that bypasses the normal committee process and goes directly to the House floor. Under House rules, a member can force a floor vote on a privileged matter with 48 hours notice, or in some procedural contexts, more immediately. Impeachment resolutions have been treated as privileged matters. That means any member can force a floor vote on articles of impeachment without the resolution going through the Judiciary Committee, without formal hearings, without the leadership-controlled scheduling process that normally determines what comes to the floor. The mechanism was designed for exactly the situation Al Green has been using it for. When a member believes that the constitutional case for impeachment is strong enough that the full House should go on record about it, regardless of whether leadership supports the effort. The tabling vote, where leadership joins the other party to prevent the resolution from advancing, is not a failure of the mechanism. It is the mechanism working as designed. The resolution forces a floor vote. Leadership tables it. Both the yes votes and the no tabling votes are recorded in the permanent congressional record. What the tabling vote documents: how many members voted to advance impeachment articles versus how many voted to table. That vote count, at each specific moment in the accountability story, is the permanent public record of where the caucus stood. Al Green's documented history of forcing these votes, because the pattern is more analytically significant than any single instance. Al Green has forced privilege resolution impeachment votes multiple times. In 2017, he introduced the first House impeachment resolution against Trump. It was tabled. He forced another vote later that year. In 2019, he forced another vote before the formal impeachment inquiry was launched. In each case, the immediate outcome was the same: tabled. The resolution did not produce articles, hearings, or Senate trial, but the vote counts tell a different story about the trajectory. Each Al Green privileged resolution has produced a floor vote that forced Democratic members and some Republican members to go on record. The evolution of those vote counts across multiple sessions is the documented trajectory of where the House Democratic caucus has been moving on the impeachment question. This series documented throughout the accountability story that the 140-vote April 2026 baseline, 140 House Democrats publicly supporting advancing impeachment articles, is the most recently documented measure of where the caucus stands. That baseline is substantially higher than where it was during the first Al Green privilege resolution votes in 2017. The Al Green pattern is the institutional mechanism through which that baseline has been repeatedly measured and publicly documented. The Thenda resolution from the opening clip, what it confirms. The opening clip of this document shows coverage of a specific privileged resolution by Representative Sherry Tanedar. The clip confirms Democratic leadership signaled they would table the motion. Democratic members would join Republicans in tabling it, and the individual member promised to continue bringing it up over and over. That confirmation is analytically significant for what it describes about the current state of the impeachment discussion within the Democratic caucus. First, individual members are willing to force floor votes even when leadership does not support them. The privileged resolution mechanism enables this. The mechanism works. It is being used. Second, Democratic leadership is not yet supporting impeachment advancement. The decision to table signals that the 140-vote baseline, while documented, has not yet produced the leadership-level political will to advance articles. Third, the promise to continue bringing it up over and over commitment is the institutional signal that the privilege resolution strategy is not a one-time dramatic moment. It is a documented, repeatable pressure mechanism that will continue producing floor votes and floor vote records throughout the accountability story. Each successive vote updates the documented baseline. Each successive vote forces members to go on record again. Each successive vote contributes to the permanent congressional record of where the House stood at each specific moment. The No Kings protest connection, because this is verified and documented in this series. This series documented in prior commentary the No Kings protest movement. 3 waves of verified public demonstrations against Trump's Iran war and constitutional overreach, with the BBC documenting the March 28, 2026 wave. The privileged resolution floor votes are happening in a political environment where those protests represent documented public sentiment. The protests and the floor votes are not coordinated. The document correctly notes, not coordinated, but simultaneous pushback. But they are expressing the same political sentiment through different institutional mechanisms. The privileged resolution is the congressional mechanism. The protests are the public mechanism. Both are creating institutional and political pressure on the same question at the same time. The convergence matters for the accountability architecture because it describes the same underlying political force operating through multiple channels simultaneously. The floor vote record, the protest documentation, the 140-vote baseline, the HRES, 353 permanent record in Congress. All of these are entries in the same accumulated accountability record. The documented institutional and political standing of the impeachment question at this specific moment in the second term. The War Powers Resolution grounds why this impeachment predicate is constitutionally distinct. This series documented throughout the accountability story that the Iran war without congressional authorization violated 4 separate constitutional dimensions. the War Powers Resolution 60-day clock, the Declare War Clause, the Appropriations Clause, and the High Crimes and Misdemeanor Standard. The privileged resolution forcing an impeachment floor vote on war powers grounds is using the House's constitutional authority in response to a documented constitutional violation by the executive branch. The constitutional fit is precise. The founders gave Congress both the power to declare war and the impeachment power specifically because they wanted the legislature to have multiple mechanisms to check executive military overreach. The War Powers Resolution was enacted in 1973 precisely to operationalize that constitutional authority after the Vietnam War. Using the impeachment mechanism in response to documented war powers violations is not novel. It is the specific application of the constitutional tool designed for this scenario. The tabling of the resolution does not change the constitutional fit. It changes only the current political conditions for executing the constitutional tool. The constitutional math, precise treatment of what conviction actually requires. Democrats currently hold 51 Senate seats. Conviction requires 67 votes, 2/3 of the Senate. Democrats need 16 Republican senators to vote to convict. This series documented the second impeachment produced 7 Republican senators voting to convict. The gap from 7 to 16 is 9 senators. The question the accountability record is building toward, whether the second term's accumulated conduct, Iran war without authorization, SCOTUS IEPA tariff ruling finding unconstitutional, 17 injunctions, court defiance pattern, Boasberg contempt proceedings, MTG breaking, Indiana redistricting defection, closes a 9-senator gap from the documented 2021 baseline. The Al Green-Thenedar privilege resolution votes contribute to that gap, closing in a specific way. They force the public question. They make the impeachment discussion a current event rather than an abstract future possibility. They ensure that Republican senators are regularly asked where they stand on the documented conduct. The floor votes do not close the gap directly. They maintain the public salience of the question and document where the House stands at each moment, which is the political pressure that operates on the Senate. November 2026 is the specific mechanism that either provides the House majority that makes the floor vote a serious first step or confirms the current conditions where it gets tabled. The clock is running. 2 sentences. First, a privilege resolution was forced to the floor. Democratic leadership tabled it, and both the forcing and the tabling are in the permanent congressional record. Second, this is the mechanism working as designed, not as the removal tool it is being framed as, but as the repeated floor vote tool that produces the permanent public record of where the House stands at each moment in the accountability story. Al Green has done this before. The resolutions have been tabled. The vote counts have moved over time. The 140 vote April 2026 baseline is the most recently documented measure of where that movement has reached. Age res. 353 is in the permanent record. The war powers constitutional predicate is documented. The 7 Republican senators who voted to convict in 2021 are the baseline. The gap to 16 is 9 senators. November 2026 is the mechanism. The privilege resolution forces the question onto the floor. The question does not go away when the resolution is tabled. It comes back at the next floor vote. And the next, that persistence, not any single dramatic moment, is the institutional story of how the impeachment question has been building throughout the second term. Stay with this one. I'm David Harper. One more dimension that connects the privileged resolution pattern to the 5-seat arithmetic this series has documented. The privileged resolution is available to any member regardless of which party controls the House. Al Green used it when Republicans controlled the House in 2017. Thenedar used it now. The mechanism does not require majority support to be deployed. But the outcome of the privileged resolution vote changes dramatically based on which party controls the House. When Republicans control the House, the resolution is tabled on a party line vote. The floor vote produces a record of Democratic support for impeachment, but the tabling requires no Republican defections. The majority is sufficient to table without any member having to break ranks. When Democrats control the House, the resolution can be brought to the floor, debated, and voted on in a committee process that produces articles rather than a privileged motion that gets tabled. The 5-seat House majority is the specific threshold that transforms the Al Green-Thenedar privileged resolution strategy from a floor vote record mechanism into an actual impeachment mechanism. That transformation, from record-keeping tool to execution tool, is what November 2026 represents for the impeachment story. The privileged resolutions are currently producing floor vote records. After November 2026, if the 5-seat arithmetic flips, the same underlying constitutional predicate, war powers violations, SCOTUS tariff ruling, court defiance pattern, can be advanced through the full committee process and brought to a floor vote with majority support. The resolutions being tabled now are not failures. They are the documented institutional foundation that a Democratic majority House can build on without starting from scratch. Age res. 353 is already drafted. The 7 articles are already in the permanent record. The floor vote history is already documented. The 140 vote baseline is already established. What changes with the 5 seats? The resolution goes through committee, not over it. The leadership supports the articles, not tables them. The floor vote is 218 on a deliberate schedule, not a privileged surprise. Everything that makes the privileged resolution strategy look like a failed effort is precisely what makes the Democratic majority scenario analytically more significant. The infrastructure is built, the predicate is documented, the baseline is established. The 5 seats are the switch. November 2026. The clock is running. And one final note on the Al Green statement about bringing the resolution over and over and over again. That commitment, made publicly in the congressional record, is the institutional signal that deserves direct treatment. A member of Congress publicly committing to repeatedly force privileged resolution floor votes throughout a presidential term is deploying a specific institutional strategy. Keep the question on the public record, keep forcing members to go on record, keep documenting where the caucus stands at each successive moment. The strategy works through accumulation rather than single dramatic moments. Each floor vote adds an entry to the record. Each successive vote updates the documented baseline. Each successive tabling confirms that the conditions for advancement are not yet present and simultaneously confirms that the underlying political support exists for the privileged resolution to be deployed again. The persistence is the point, not any single vote. The documented pattern of a question that will not leave the floor because the constitutional predicate, a president conducting unauthorized military operations against a sovereign nation, does not go away when the resolution is tabled. The floor vote that gets tabled today is the baseline that the next floor vote builds on. The 140 vote April 2026 baseline built on the 2019 Al Green vote that built on the 2017 Al Green votes. Each iteration adds members. The baseline grows. Whether the baseline grows to 218, the House majority needed for a non-tabled floor vote, is what November 2026 determines. That is the honest institutional story. Not the dramatic Trump is removed framing of this document's inflated version. The patient, documented, accumulating institutional story of a constitutional predicate that keeps returning to the floor because the conduct that created it keeps being documented. Stay with this one. I'm David Harper. The privileged resolution that gets tabled today is already in the permanent record. The member who forced it promised to force it again. The 140 vote baseline is already established. The 5-seat arithmetic is the mechanism. Persistence. Accumulation. Record building. That is the institutional story the dramatic framing misses. I'm David Harper.